This story was submitted to me by Earl Fineart. It had been a long, exhausting day, the kind that drains every ounce of energy from you. So when my head hit the pillow that night, I was out almost instantly. Sleep came easy, too easy. Somewhere in the middle of the night, a dream began to take shape. But not the kind you wake from feeling rested. No, this one was different, and even now it haunts me. It started in the woods, thick, endless trees surrounding a massive, towering castle. The entire landscape was cloaked in shadows, as if light itself refused to touch it. The only brightness came from the sky above, a faint wash of deep blue behind wisps of cloud, eerily motionless. And then came the sound. God, that sound. It was coming from inside the castle, yet it somehow echoed all around me, like it was being thrown back and forth by the trees. A guttural, demonic voice, twisted, low, and inhuman, called out, not with words, but with something deeper, something primal. It wasn't loud exactly, but it reached inside me like a hand and gripped my spine. Even now, just recalling it sends a sick, cold shiver down my back. I knew, without understanding how, that it was summoning me, calling me forward. I had no control. This wasn't a lucid dream. I was simply a passenger, forced to follow my own footsteps. So I walked toward the castle. Only there weren't any doors, no gates, no drawbridge. The walls simply opened, as if the inside of the castle and the outside world were the same. I can't describe it any better than that. It didn't follow any normal architecture. It just was. The voice was louder now, closer, reverberating through the massive halls. The castle stretched ahead in impossible geometry, vast stone corridors winding in every direction. As I moved deeper in, the halls began to narrow, slowly, almost imperceptibly, until my shoulders brushed against the cold, damp stone walls. Eventually, I found myself dragging my hands along the surface just to stay upright. I could feel the weight of the structure pressing in on me, like it didn't want me there. Or maybe it did. To my left, a door. The screaming was coming from behind it, raw, unnatural, vibrating with rage and torment. It wasn't just a voice anymore. It was a storm, a scream that didn't end. My hand moved on its own, reaching for the handle, and as I opened the door, there was only darkness. Pure, suffocating black. A void so complete, it felt like the world had ended inside it. Yet, I moved forward. I don't remember walking. I don't even remember deciding to. But I felt myself drifting closer to the sound. Then I slammed into something. Suddenly, I was awake, gasping, and hunched over. My knees were pressed against the floor. My hands were gripping the frame of a small bed, my son's bed. He was crying, no, screaming, his face twisted in terror. I could see it now, in the dim nightlight glow. I'd startled him beyond anything I'd ever seen. And as I blinked the remnants of the dream away, still confused, still shaken, he started to tell me what he saw. How I had entered his room. How I'd walked in without a word, stopped at the foot of his bed, and slowly, without blinking, lowered myself down toward him, face first, as if I wasn't even human anymore. He said I looked like I wasn't awake. And maybe I wasn't. Maybe part of me never really left that castle. This story was posted by a forum user named Joey Manuso. Before I get into it, there's something I feel I need to make clear. I'm an atheist. I don't believe in miracles, gods, spirits, or anything remotely supernatural. Never have. But what happened to me, I still can't explain. It started in a dream, a disturbing one. I remember it being Halloween night. The sky was dark but glowing orange, the way it does when the air is crisp and leaves scatter under your feet. I was out trick-or-treating with some of my friends. We were walking down a quiet street, plastic pumpkin pails in hand. The kind of night that should have felt nostalgic, even fun, but it didn't. Something felt off. We approached two houses. The first one, totally normal. Porch light on, a friendly smile, candy dropped into our buckets. I barely remember the details. But the second house, that's where things twisted. As we rang the doorbell, the door creaked open on its own. No one behind it, no greeting, just an eerie, silent invitation. Inside was a dimly lit living room bathed in a dark blue hue, like the color of twilight right before the sky turns black. I stepped in, just one cautious step, and in that instant, my friends were gone. I blinked. Gone. No sound. No trace. I spun around to look for them and realized something chilling. The door I had just entered through had vanished. No knob, no frame, just a solid, seamless wall. The room around me began to change, not slowly, not subtly, but like it was being rewritten right in front of me. Furniture morphed, walls shifted colors and textures. The dream logic kicked in, that familiar unreality where things feel both vivid and nonsensical. But still, something about this felt too real. I began exploring the house, though I don't remember making the decision to. I just started moving, as if drawn forward. Eventually, I reached a room upstairs. Though, and this part still messes with my head, I don't remember climbing any stairs. The room was empty, except for one wall. There, taking up nearly the entire surface, was a giant framed picture. It was enormous, easily 10 meters long and 20 meters high. Its sheer scale made it feel like it was breathing, looming. The image? It was of my cousin. My 30-year-old cousin, someone I hadn't seen or spoken to in years. Her eyes, God, her eyes were wrong. Enlarged beyond human proportions, unnaturally wide and piercing. Wherever I moved in the room, they followed me, fixed, watchful, unblinking. I felt trapped inside their gaze, like she could see something in me I didn't want revealed. Then, a hairline crack formed across the portrait. The sound that followed was horrific, a metallic, screeching wail that dug deep into my ears. It was the sound of the massive, rusted nails anchoring the portrait beginning to give way, one by one. Groaning, twisting, the frame shifted. It started to fall. I stood frozen, rooted to the floor, watching the entire monstrous frame tip forward. I couldn't move, couldn't scream. I could feel the crushing weight descending toward me, a shadow blotting out everything. And just before it struck me, I woke up. Gasping, drenched in cold sweat, heart pounding in my throat. The clock read 5 a.m. I barely had time to process it when my phone rang. The screen glowed in the dark. My uncle. A strange time for a call, one that brought instant dread. I answered. His voice was trembling. He told me that my cousin, the one from the portrait, the one I hadn't seen in so long, had just been found dead. A heroin overdose. She died minutes before I woke up. I was having a nightmare. It started off simply enough, me sitting in my house, reading a newspaper. Everything felt calm, quiet, maybe too quiet. The kind of silence that settles just before something shifts. I could feel it in my chest before anything even happened, a creeping sense of unease. And then, just like that, the lights went out. Total blackout. The newspaper slipped from my hands as the room plunged into darkness. The dream shifted then, narrowing its focus. Everything zeroed in on one thing, figuring out why the power had gone out. Apparently, in the dream's warped version of my home, the fuse box was located in the basement. That's not accurate in real life, but in the dream it felt unquestionable. Of course it was down there. My brain accepted it instantly, like dreams always make you do. I grabbed a flashlight and headed down. The basement was steep, each step creaking louder than the last. The beam of light trembled just slightly in my hand, casting long shadows against the concrete walls. Everything below felt cold, far colder than it should have been. The air was damp and smelled faintly of rust and mildew. A thick, unnatural stillness clung to the space. I found the fuse box on the far wall and opened it. Inside, taped to the panel, was a small, sticky note. It read, "Go back upstairs to the red room." I just stared at it for a moment. The handwriting was shaky, like it had been scribbled in a rush or by someone unsure of their own words. The note shouldn't have been there. None of this made sense, but in the logic of the dream, I obeyed. At least, I started to. That's when I heard it. A low, guttural moaning sound, distant at first, but unmistakably coming from somewhere deeper in the basement. Specifically, the boiler room. Or maybe the laundry room. In the dream, they were the same place, some shadowy hybrid space my childhood brain had always avoided. I froze, flashlight beam hovering just above the cracked doorway to that room. The sound came again, longer this time. Not human, not quite animal, just wrong. My mind instantly recognized it. It was dredging up an old fear, childhood fear. That cold, irrational terror of the dark basement, of the place behind the boiler where the light never reached. Somehow, my brain had dragged it back up and was now using it against me. Then, the door to the boiler room creaked open, just an inch. And from the blackness beyond, something slowly poked its head out. Not fast, not loud, just slow, purposeful, watching. I couldn't breathe. My grip tightened on the flashlight, but I didn't move. Whatever it was, its face, or what passed for a face, was half lost in shadow. I couldn't see clearly, and I didn't want to. Instinct took over. I turned, I ran. I bolted up the stairs, heart pounding in my ears, the sticky note's message still burning in my mind. Go back upstairs to the red room. And somehow, despite the panic, I did. I made my way upstairs, my footsteps echoing strangely against the hardwood as I climbed toward the second floor of the house. At the end of the hallway, something impossible was waiting. A glowing red door. It pulsed with a dull, sickly crimson light that bled into the hallway walls around it. I stopped in my tracks. That door doesn't exist. Not in real life. There's no room there. But in the dream, it stood like it had always been part of the house. Solid, inevitable, waiting. As I moved closer, a sound began to rise from behind it, muffled at first, then growing clearer with every cautious step I took. A voice, chanting. At first, it was too distorted to make out. But soon I realized what it was repeating, again and again in a hollow, echoing cadence. 3:14, 3:14. The number pulsed with the rhythm, each repetition vibrating faintly through the floorboards, through my chest. I couldn't tell if it was being whispered or screamed, but it felt close, intimate, like someone was right up against my ear, too close to turn away from. Despite every fiber in me urging me to turn around, my hand reached for the doorknob. The metal felt warm. I twisted it and stepped inside. The room was bathed in a suffocating red light. The exact same glow that had seeped through the door now saturated everything: walls, ceiling, floor. The color seemed to hum, alive and oppressive. It wasn't just red, it was wrong. And in the center of the room, facing the far wall, sat a single wooden chair. That was it. Nothing else. No windows, no furniture. Just that one chair, deliberately placed, its back to me. The chanting was louder now, clearer, right there, just behind me, just beside me. Yet when I looked around, I was alone. Still, the voice kept repeating the same number over and over. 3:14, 3:14. The tone was unnatural, grating, unearthly. It sounded like something not used to speaking, like a throat that had forgotten how to form words. It slid down my spine like ice water, and I swear I could feel the breath of it on my neck. And then I woke up, snapped back into my bed with a jolt, my chest heaving. My heart was racing, hammering against my ribs like it was trying to escape. The room was dark, still. I reached over and grabbed my iPhone from the desk where I'd left it before sleeping. The screen lit up my face with a cold blue light as I squinted at the time. 3:14. Exactly. You might be thinking I'd just seen the clock in my sleep, that it was a coincidence. But here's the thing. I have no digital clocks in my room. No alarm clock, no wall clock, just my phone. And it was still sitting exactly where I'd left it, unmoved, untouched. So how did my dream know? Why that number? 3:14. To this day, I have no explanation. I don't know if there's any meaning behind it, or if something else was trying to tell me that there is. This one came from an old Ask Reddit post. It happened during a summer night back in 2015. I was completely blazed, high out of my mind after a party. Somehow, by sheer luck or divine intervention, I made it home without getting caught by my parents. I stumbled to my room, head spinning, and went straight for the bed. I'd hit that part of the high where everything just melts into exhaustion, where your body demands sleep like gravity pulling you down. Within 10 minutes, maybe even less, I was out cold. You ever hear that theory? That if you go to sleep while you're high, your dreams get weird? Not just vivid, but more intense, like your brain unlocks a darker, deeper layer? Yeah. Well, after this one, I'm not about to argue with that idea. I don't remember anything before the dream. No transition, no fading, just there. Suddenly, I was standing alone in the woods, nighttime, pitch black above, with towering trees pressing in on all sides like silent sentinels. The air was heavy, still. Now, in real life, being in the woods at night might feel eerie, but not terrifying. You'd hear crickets, maybe the rustle of leaves, distant frogs or owls, nature doing its thing. But this wasn't nature. This was a dream. And dreams bend things. There were no crickets, no frogs, no wind whispering through leaves. Instead, the woods pulsed with a cold, ghostly wind, shrieking low and unnatural. It came from every direction and none at once, like the trees were exhaling around me. And rather than insects or birds, I heard wolf howls, long, lonely, and close, far too close. Worse still, there were footsteps behind me, crisp, deliberate, pacing me. No matter how fast or slow I moved, they stayed the exact same distance back, always just there, like a shadow I couldn't shake. That's the thing about nightmares. They have this magical horror to them, an emotional weight that's impossible to explain unless you felt it yourself. It's not just fear, it's dread, bone deep, as if your soul knows something is coming before your brain does. I ran. I didn't think, I didn't look. I just took off through the trees, breath ragged, dream logic making the world stretch and twist beneath my feet. And then, out of nowhere, because dreams always do this, there was a building. Right there in the middle of the forest. No lights, no markings, just an old, abandoned-looking structure with a crooked roof and broken steps. Without hesitation, I ran inside. The door slammed shut behind me, and somehow, without thinking, I grabbed planks that were suddenly scattered across the floor. I started boarding up the door, hammering them into place with strength I didn't even know I had. I didn't question where the wood came from. In dreams, you never do. All I knew was something was coming, and that door needed to stay shut. This dream felt like it went on forever, too long to describe every moment, but the fear never eased, not once. To summarize the rest of it, after I boarded up the door, I realized the building I had run into wasn't just some random shack. It was a house. silent, empty, and it didn't feel abandoned so much as unfinished, like a set built for a nightmare. The footsteps, the same ones that had followed me through the woods, never went away. They started to circle the house, dragging slowly around the outer walls, step by step, as if whatever was out there was pacing, waiting for me to make a mistake. I searched desperately for a weapon, anything to protect myself, but the house was bare, completely stripped of anything useful. The only colors left were black and white, like someone had drained the dream of its last bit of warmth and life. Eventually, I found myself sitting on an old couch in the living room, one of the only pieces of furniture in the entire place. The fabric felt damp beneath me, and the springs groaned under my weight. Every corner of the room was lost in shadow, the silence broken only by the occasional creak of the walls settling, or something else. Then, at the window across from me, a shadow moved. It slid into view slowly, and I swear my heart froze. There, just beyond the glass, was a figure, still watching me. Then came the knocking. One tap, then another, then again and again. Steady, insistent, bone deep. The figure just stood there, hand raised, knocking in perfect rhythm, like it knew I couldn't ignore it. The sound grew louder, sharper. I wanted to scream, to run, but I couldn't move. I was trapped in the couch, stuck watching as it just kept knocking. And then I woke up, eyes wide, chest heaving. But the knocking didn't stop. That's when I knew something was wrong, really wrong. I jolted upright in my bed, heart pounding, the last fragments of the dream still tangled in my thoughts. But then I heard it again. Knock, 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 coming from my actual window. I turned slowly. There was someone standing outside, face obscured by the darkness, just a silhouette framed by moonlight, their hand gently tapping the glass. I couldn't even breathe. A tiny, helpless squeal escaped my throat as I scrambled out of bed. "Dad!" I shouted, louder than I probably ever had in my life. The figure at the window jerked back at the sound of my voice and ran. By the time my dad burst into my room, they were gone. We both went outside together, him with a flashlight, me still trembling, my mind stuck somewhere between the dream and waking. We circled the yard, checked the side of the house, even peered into the trees. Nothing. No footprints, no noise, just the still night air. My dad told me gently, "You probably just had a bad dream. Go back to sleep." I wanted to believe him. I really did. Maybe the high hadn't completely worn off. Maybe I was hallucinating halfway between dream and reality. But the sound had been real. The knocking was real. And that figure, that thing standing at my window, it felt real. I hope he was right, but I'm not sure I'll ever be certain. I was in the middle of a dream. No, a nightmare. And not just any nightmare. This one was different, more vivid, more personal, possibly the most disturbing I've ever had in my life. I was in my house, or at least a version of it. That's the best way I can describe it. It wasn't exactly my real home, but some warped, dream-made imitation of it. Familiar walls, familiar layout, just slightly wrong in ways I couldn't quite name. Ironically, in the dream, I was in bed. I don't remember anything leading up to that point. I just became aware that I was already lying there, awake in the dark. Then I heard it. A sound echoing faintly from downstairs, muffled and strange. I couldn't place it, but something about it felt off, deliberate, like it wanted me to notice. I got up. I didn't turn on any lights. The house was drowned in shadow as I moved down to the middle floor, following the direction of the sound. The air felt heavy, like the walls were pressing inward. The dream whispered to me, "Go to the laundry room." So I did. I made my way toward the door, expecting the sound to be clearer now, louder. But when I reached it, it wasn't. It still felt just as far away, like the house itself was stretching the noise, keeping it distant on purpose. Then the dream shifted. Suddenly, I was being nudged, guided back upstairs, into the kitchen. That's when I noticed something that sent a deeper chill through me than anything else. Every window I passed was pitch black. Not nighttime darkness, not starlit or shadowy. Nothingness. Total void. It was like the world outside didn't exist, like my house was floating in the middle of absolute, infinite black. I realized then, this dream only had one setting, my house. Everything else had been erased. Then the sound changed. The banging was now coming from above, upstairs. And in that way dreams have of pushing you silently forward, I felt myself moving up. My body obeyed without question, and soon I was standing at the door to the attic. It was waiting for me. I opened it. Inside, standing among a scattered mess of dusty boxes, was an old woman. Her back was turned to me, her figure hunched, her shoulders twitching with unnatural rhythm as she raised one arm over and over, slamming her hand down on a box. The sound it made wasn't normal. It didn't even sound like skin on cardboard. It was sharp, metallic, wrong, like something hollow cracking open again and again. The air in the attic was thick, and each slam echoed off the rafters like thunder trapped in a coffin. I tried to step back, silently, praying she hadn't noticed me. But she had. She turned. Her face, her whole head, twisted toward me in a motion too fast, too fluid. Her mouth opened, and kept opening. Wider than a human mouth should, far, far wider, like her jaw had unhinged, her skin stretching grotesquely as she began to scream. Her arms reached out, and then she leapt straight toward me. That's when I woke up. At first, I thought it had all just been a horrific dream. Just another nightmare, one of those you wake from soaked in sweat, thankful it wasn't real. But then I heard it, a bang coming from downstairs. And not just any bang, it was the same sharp, echoing slam I'd heard in the dream. The one the old woman had been making in the attic. The one that rattled through the boxes like bones being cracked open. My heart dropped, cold. I froze in place for a second, breath caught in my throat, waiting, hoping it was just in my head. Then another bang, louder this time. The front door. I was already halfway down the stairs, each creak beneath my feet sounding far too loud in the dead silence of the early morning. The air in the house felt wrong, too still, like something was holding its breath. I didn't waste time. I went straight to the kitchen, grabbed the butcher knife from the holder, my hands trembling but tight around the handle, and crouched down low behind the door. The shadows stretched across the floor like long fingers reaching for me. I waited, knife in hand, every muscle tense. I expected him to knock again, to slam his fists like before, and I was ready. I was going to shout through the door, warn him to go away, yell something, anything. But nothing happened, just silence. A long, crawling minute passed, maybe more. Finally, I edged my way toward the window, slowly, cautiously, and lifted the corner of the curtain just enough to see out. There was someone standing in my driveway, still, motionless. I couldn't tell if he was facing me or looking away. His body was stiff, rigid, as if he had just been carved out of the darkness itself. But I knew it was him. I felt it. He was the one who had been pounding on the door at 4 in the morning. As soon as I spotted him, he began to move, walking away down the sidewalk, slowly. No panic, no rush, just leaving. It was like he had seen me looking, or maybe that was the point all along.
The way he had hit the door, those weren't knocks. That wasn't someone trying to get my attention or ask for help. That was someone trying to get in. It was violent, forceful, desperate, like a home invasion waiting to happen. But here's what chills me the most. That pounding didn't wake me up. It wasn't the sound that broke the dream. No, the pounding, the same pounding that some stranger was doing to my front door, became part of the nightmare. It wove itself into the dream, became the heartbeat of that old woman's violent slamming in the attic. And somehow, the two blurred. Like the boundary between reality and nightmare wasn't there at all. Just thinking about it now still makes me shudder. Because whatever that was, whatever that man wanted, he didn't knock to be let in. He was trying to force his way through. And I almost slept right through it.